Marcus Johnson stood at the edge of the bustling Literary Excellence Fair in New York City, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the faint rustle of pages turning surrounded him as he clutched his self-published novel, Echoes of the Past, tightly against his chest. This was it, the moment he had been dreaming of for years. But as he looked around at the throngs of attendees, he felt a twinge of doubt. Would anyone notice him among the sea of familiar faces and established authors? Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped forward, weaving through the crowd. The vibrant displays and colorful banners caught his eye, each booth a testament to literary success. Names of renowned authors adorned the tables, their smiling faces greeting eager fans. Marcus felt a surge of determination. He had poured his soul into his book, and he was here to share it with the world. Yet, with every step, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was invisible. "Excuse me," he said, approaching a booth adorned with glossy posters of a best-selling thriller. Two women, engrossed in conversation, barely glanced in his direction. "Yeah," one of them replied, her tone dismissive. "I'm Marcus Johnson. I'm an author too, and Oh, you're one of the attendees," the other woman interrupted, her voice dripping with condescension. "That's nice. Enjoy the fair." Marcus's heart sank as he stepped back, watching them turn their attention to the next person in line. The words he had prepared felt stuck in his throat. He turned away, feeling a wave of disheartenment wash over him. The laughter and chatter of the fair felt like a distant echo, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was merely a spectator in a world that wasn't meant for him. As he wandered deeper into the fair, he couldn't help but observe the vibrant interactions around him. Authors exchanged pleasantries with fans, discussions erupted over new literary trends, and the air buzzed with the thrill of creativity. But in the midst of this whirlwind, Marcus felt like a ghost, an overlooked specter haunting the edges of a celebration he longed to join. Suddenly, he overheard a group of prominent authors at a nearby booth discussing the importance of diversity in literature. Their conversation sparked something within him, a flicker of hope amidst the shadows of doubt. "I think it's crucial to elevate diverse voices," one of them argued passionately. "Our stories shape the narrative, and without representation, we're missing out on so much." Marcus leaned in, his ears perked up. "Exactly," another author chimed in. "We need to create space for everyone, not just the same old narratives." With each word, Marcus felt a surge of determination. He had spent countless nights crafting his story, a tale steeped in his experiences and perspectives. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. If they truly believed in the importance of diversity, then he had every right to stand tall among them. "Maybe I can find a way to introduce myself after all," he thought, pushing away the remnants of doubt. He took a deep breath, straightened his back, and made his way towards the group, ready to seize his moment. After all, he was not just an attendee. He was an author with a story to tell, a voice that deserved to be heard. "Excuse me," he began, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. The group turned to him, curiosity flickering in their eyes. "I'm Marcus Johnson, and I just published my debut novel, Echoes of the Past. I believe it captures the essence of what we're discussing. Would you like to hear about it?" For a moment, the world around him faded into the background. This was his chance, a chance to be more than just an overlooked presence at the fair. It was an opportunity to show that his voice mattered, to prove that the stories of diverse authors deserved to be celebrated. Marcus stepped forward, ready to share his journey, his passion, and the echoes of his past that had led him to this very moment. Marcus Johnson stood in the corner of the bustling Literary Excellence Fair, a small table adorned with his self-published novel, Echoes of the Past, before him. The vibrant colors of the cover, deep blues and golds, seemed to fade into the background as attendees streamed past, their conversations filled with the names of mainstream authors. Marcus clutched a stack of free copies, hoping that the allure of no cost might draw someone in. But as he watched, most people were too engrossed in the signings of well-known authors to even glance his way. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said, trying to catch the attention of a woman in a stylish blazer who was rushing past. "Would you like a free copy of my book?" She looked at him briefly, her eyes scanning the table before dismissively shaking her head. "No, thanks. I'm okay," she replied, moving onward without another glance. The sting of her indifference pierced through Marcus, leaving him feeling more invisible than ever. "Maybe I should just pack up," he murmured to himself, glancing down at the books that felt heavier with each passing moment. Just then, he noticed a familiar face approaching. Lynda Carter, a veteran author known for her poignant takes on social issues. She was a beacon of resilience, someone who had carved a niche for herself in an industry often resistant to change. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" Lynda asked, her voice warm and inviting. "I'm trying to promote my book, but it seems like no one is interested," he sighed, gesturing towards the throngs of attendees who glided past as if he were a mere ghost. Lynda studied him for a moment, her expression shifting from concern to determination. "I've been there, many times. It can be disheartening, especially when it feels like the industry overlooks you. But you can't give up. Your voice matters." "Does it really?" Marcus questioned, the weight of doubt heavy in his heart. "Absolutely. Every story deserves to be told, and your experiences are valid," Lynda assured him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I remember standing in a similar spot years ago, and I felt so alone. But I kept pushing forward. I turned my struggles into stories, and that's what made the difference." Marcus's spirit lifted slightly as he listened to her words. "I guess I just need to find my audience," he mused, feeling a flicker of hope ignite. "Exactly. You never know who might be looking for a story like yours. Just keep sharing your passion," she encouraged, her eyes sparkling with belief. "And remember, the right people will find you if you stay true to yourself." Reinvigorated, Marcus watched Lynda walk away, her presence lingering like a warm afterglow. He took a deep breath, resolved to stay put and keep trying. As the day wore on, however, fatigue began to settle in. He sat down behind his table, resting his head in his hands, feeling the weight of disappointment pressing down on him. Just then, a voice broke through his thoughts. "What's this about?" A young girl, no older than 12, stood before him, her bright eyes focused on the cover of his book. "It looks really cool." Marcus straightened, surprised by her enthusiasm. "It's my debut novel, Echoes of the Past. It's a story it's about finding one's identity and the strength of resilience." "Can I read it?" she asked eagerly, her excitement infectious. "Of course. Here, take a copy," Marcus replied, handing her a book. "It's free, so I hope you enjoy it." The girl flipped through the pages, her brow furrowing in concentration. "What's it about?" she asked, glancing up at him with genuine interest. "It's about a young man navigating the complexities of his past while trying to forge his own identity in a world that often tries to define him," Marcus explained, his passion for the story lighting up his eyes. "Wow, that sounds amazing," she exclaimed, beginning to read aloud a passage that caught her eye. As she read, a small crowd began to gather, drawn in by her enthusiasm and Marcus's compelling narrative. "Did you write that?" one of the listeners asked, his tone shifting from casual curiosity to genuine interest. "Yes, I did," Marcus replied, feeling a rush of adrenaline as he spoke to the emerging audience. "It's all about the struggles and triumphs we face in our journey to self-discovery." The group listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of intrigue and appreciation. For the first time that day, Marcus felt a spark of recognition, not just from a single reader, but from a small community forming around his table. As the girl finished the passage, she looked up, her eyes wide. "This is really good. You have to keep writing." Marcus smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you. I will," he promised, knowing that this moment, however small, was a step towards the recognition he craved. As the buzz around Marcus Johnson's debut novel began to swell, the dimly lit corners of the literary fair transformed into a vibrant epicenter of interest. The young reader, Emily, had posted an enthusiastic review of Echoes of the Past on her social media, a platform filled with influential followers who valued authentic voices. Within hours, notifications pinged like fireworks, and Marcus's phone lit up with alerts. He watched in disbelief as his book gained traction. each notification a testament to a growing wave of support. "Marcus, look at this!" Emily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she showed him her phone screen. The tweet she had shared was rapidly gaining likes and retweets, her followers eager to dive into his work. "They're loving the cover, and they're curious about your story." "Really? I can't believe this is happening," Marcus stammered, a mix of disbelief and hope flooding his chest. He had spent years pouring his soul into this novel, and now it felt as though the universe was finally taking notice. As sales soared, the organizers of the literary fair, scanning social media feeds and tracking sales numbers, could no longer ignore the rising star that was Marcus Johnson. Reluctantly, they reached out to him with an invitation to speak on a panel about diversity in literature. The email, filled with corporate jargon, felt simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. An opportunity to stand on a stage, yet another chance to be marginalized. "Marcus, you have to do this," Emily insisted, her enthusiasm unwavering. "This is your moment. You can share your story." "Yeah, but what if I freeze up there? What if they don't want to hear what I have to say?" he replied, his voice shaky. "Just remember, your voice matters. You've already started to make waves. This is just the beginning. You owe it to yourself to be heard," she encouraged, her resolve igniting a flicker of confidence within him. With a deep breath, Marcus accepted the invitation. As the day of the panel approached, his mind raced with preparations. He envisioned the stage, the audience, the questions that might come his way. Would they truly listen, or would he be just another token voice on a panel designed to appease? On the day of the event, the atmosphere pulsed with energy. The panel room was filled with attendees, each one eager to hear the discussions on diversity. Marcus sat at the table, flanked by established authors whose works had been recognized and celebrated. He felt small, his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for his turn to speak. "Marcus, you ready?" one of the panelists, a well-known author named Jessica, asked, sensing his unease. "I suppose so. Just trying to gather my thoughts," he replied, forcing a smile. The moderator introduced him, and as he stood up to speak, the room quieted. He cleared his throat, the spotlight warming his face. "Thank you for having me," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'm here to share my journey as a Black author navigating this industry, which often overlooks voices like mine." As he spoke, weaving his story with threads of resilience and identity, he watched the audience lean in, their attention palpable. He discussed the challenges he faced, the misconceptions about his work, and the importance of representation. With every word, he felt a wave of empowerment wash over him, as if he were reclaiming the space that had been denied to him for so long. "Stories matter," he asserted, his voice rising with passion. "They shape our understanding of the world. When we elevate diverse voices, we enrich our literary landscape." As he finished, an electric silence filled the room before the audience erupted into applause. Marcus felt a swell of emotion, a mix of relief and gratitude. The applause was not just for him, but for every overlooked voice in the literary world. Then, something remarkable happened. As the applause faded, a standing ovation broke out, catching Marcus off guard. He looked around, his heart racing, and saw Emily cheering wildly, tears of joy streaming down her face. In that moment, he realized that he had not only found his voice, but had also resonated with others who longed for representation and acknowledgement. The literary fair had changed in that instant. The walls of bias began to crack, and Marcus Johnson was no longer just another overlooked author. He had carved a path, not just for himself, but for countless others yearning to be heard. As the sun broke through the glass canopy of the convention center, casting a warm glow over the bustling Literary Excellence Fair, Marcus Johnson felt an electric mixture of excitement and trepidation. He had been invited back for a book signing, an unexpected twist in his journey that had transformed from obscurity to burgeoning recognition. The organizers had clearly shifted their approach, eager to capitalize on the newfound buzz surrounding his debut novel, Echoes of the Past. Yet, as Marcus stood behind the signing table, he could feel the weight of their previous oversight pressing down on him. "Hey, Marcus," called out Linda Carter, her voice cutting through the chatter. She approached with a bright smile, her presence a comforting reminder of the solidarity they had forged in their shared struggles. "I heard about your signing. Congratulations. They finally recognized your talent." "Thanks, Linda," Marcus replied, trying to mask his simmering frustration. "But it feels a bit hollow, like they're trying to erase the past and pretend this was all part of the plan." Linda nodded, her expression turning serious. "You deserve this moment. Don't let their past mistakes overshadow your success. Just keep being you." As the signing time approached, Marcus noticed Thomas Blake, the head organizer, moving through the crowd with a palpable air of self-satisfaction. Thomas had been one of the first to dismiss him at the fair, but now he was all smiles, shaking hands and directing reporters towards Marcus's table. It felt disingenuous to Marcus, who recalled the dismissive glances and the invisible walls that had surrounded him just days before. "Marcus, can we get a quick word?" a reporter from a local outlet shouted as he approached. Marcus plastered on a smile, ready to navigate the media frenzy that had suddenly engulfed him. "Absolutely," he replied, his heart racing as he adjusted his posture. "What would you like to know? Could you tell us about your experience at the fair last year? How does it feel to have your voice finally recognized?" The question was a double-edged sword, and Marcus took a moment to gather his thoughts. "Last year was tough. I felt overlooked, like I was invisible in a room full of talent. But I also felt determined. I knew my story mattered, and I was willing to fight for it. Now, being here, it feels surreal. I want to use this platform to advocate for others who might feel silenced." As he spoke, he caught Thomas's eye. The organizer's smile faltered for a brief moment, and Marcus felt a surge of defiance. He would not allow this moment to be twisted into a narrative that glossed over the fair's glaring shortcomings. After the interview, Marcus stepped away, his heart racing. He needed to confront Thomas. The fair's past treatment of him, and others, could not be swept under the rug. He spotted Thomas engaging with a group of authors, their laughter ringing hollow in his ears. Taking a deep breath, Marcus approached, determination hardening in his chest. "Thomas, can we talk?" he said, his voice steady but firm. "Of course, Marcus. Great to see you." Thomas's tone was overly enthusiastic, but Marcus could sense the tension beneath the surface. "I appreciate the invitation back, but we need to address the elephant in the room," Marcus stated, cutting through the pleasantries. "The way you and the fair treated me last year was unacceptable. You marginalized my voice and the voices of many others." Thomas's smile faltered. "I think you're misinterpreting." "No, I'm not," Marcus interrupted, his passion igniting. "You can't just downplay that. It's about more than just me. It's about inclusivity and the systemic biases that exist in this industry. If you want to promote diversity, you need to start by owning your mistakes." A tense silence fell between them, a chasm filled with unspoken truths. Thomas opened his mouth to respond, but Marcus pressed on. "People are looking to you and this fair to lead by example. Ignoring the past won't make it go away." Thomas shifted uncomfortably, his deflection evident. "We're working on it, Marcus. We've made some changes. Changes aren't enough. They need to be meaningful. If you truly care about diversity, you have to show it. Elevate the voices you've overlooked. Create space for real discourse." Just then, a buzz coursed through the crowd as news broke that a well-known critic from a major publication planned to review his book. The stakes were suddenly higher, and Marcus could feel the energy in the air shift. He glanced at Thomas, whose facade of confidence was cracking. "Let's hope your review goes well, Marcus. It could change everything," Thomas said with a forced smile, but the uncertainty in his eyes told a different story. "It will. But it's not just about me," Marcus replied, his resolve solidifying. "It's about all of us who've been ignored and silenced. And I won't stop until we're heard." As he turned away, he felt a surge of empowerment. The day was still young, and the fair had a long way to go in addressing its biases. But Marcus was no longer just a voice in the crowd. He was a force to be reckoned with, and he was determined to ensure that every story mattered. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the bustling literary fair, Marcus Johnson felt an electric thrill in the air. He could hardly believe the news that had spread like wildfire. A prominent critic had written a glowing review of his debut novel, Echoes of the Past. The review praised his unique perspective and storytelling prowess, calling it a necessary voice in contemporary literature. With each passing moment, he felt the weight of hope and expectation pressing down on him. "Marcus, have you seen this?" Emily, the young reader who had first discovered his book, gushed as she approached him, her phone in hand. "Look at the shares and comments. Everyone is talking about you." He took the phone from her, his heart racing as he scrolled through the excited messages from readers and fellow authors. Each notification felt like a small victory. "This is incredible, Emily. I can hardly keep up." His voice trembled with excitement, and he couldn't suppress the broad smile forming on his face. But just as the thrill of his success began to wash over him, a shadow fell across the moment. Marcus caught sight of Thomas Blake, the head organizer of the fair, standing a few booths away. The man's demeanor had shifted since Marcus's rise to fame. He seemed increasingly agitated, whispering to other organizers with a furtive glance in Marcus's direction. Later, as Marcus shared his euphoria with Linda Carter, he noticed her expression darken. "I just heard something disturbing," she said, her voice low and serious. "There are rumors circulating, Marcus. Thomas is trying to discredit you, to undermine everything you've achieved." "What? Why would he do that?" Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. After all the hard work he had put into getting his voice heard, this betrayal cut deep. "He feels threatened," Linda explained, her eyes steady and fierce. "Your success shines a light on the biases within this industry, and he's afraid of what that means for him and the fair. But you can't let him stop you. You have to confront this." Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself. "What should I do?" "You need to stand up for yourself. Publicly. Don't let him hide behind rumors and lies," she encouraged, her voice filled with conviction. "You've already inspired so many. It's time to show them that your voice is strong and that you won't be silenced." With her words echoing in his mind, Marcus felt a surge of determination. He knew he had come too far to let someone like Thomas undermine his journey. That evening, he gathered his thoughts and prepared for the confrontation that awaited him. The next day, as he stood on stage during a live panel discussion, Marcus felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The audience buzzed with energy, and he could see familiar faces: Emily, Linda, and a growing number of supporters who had rallied around him. When it was his turn to speak, he took a deep breath and faced the crowd. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady. "I'm grateful for the support I've received, especially after the recent review of my book. It's a testament to the power of representation in literature." He paused, scanning the crowd, then continued, "However, I must address something troubling. There are rumors being spread about me, attempts to discredit my voice and my work. It's not surprising, considering the biases that persist in our industry." Gasps rippled through the audience, and Marcus saw Thomas shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "But I refuse to be silenced. I stand here not just for myself, but for every author who has ever felt marginalized or overlooked." As he spoke, the atmosphere thickened with tension. He felt the weight of his words, the responsibility of his message. We must confront these biases head-on. It's time to acknowledge not just the diversity that exists, but the vital importance of amplifying those voices. Then, from the back of the room, Emily stood up, her voice ringing out. "I read Marcus's book, and it changed my life. I saw myself in his stories. We need more voices like his." Applause erupted, echoing around the hall. Encouraged by the response, Marcus pressed on. "This is about more than just one book or one author. This is about ensuring that all stories are told, that every voice has a place at the table." The crowd roared with approval, and Marcus felt a wave of empowerment wash over him. He was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting for all those who felt invisible in the literary world. With Linda's support and the backing of his growing fan base, he knew he had the strength to confront the biases that had long plagued the industry. The atmosphere in the auditorium was charged with an electric tension as Marcus Johnson took the stage, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of all the eyes in the room on him, a mixture of curiosity and skepticism swirling in the air. This was not just another panel discussion. It was a battleground for the truth. Marcus adjusted the microphone, his hands trembling slightly, but he steadied his breath, recalling the journey that had brought him here. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice firm yet measured, "I stand before you not just as an author, but as a testament to the resilience of voices that have been marginalized in this industry." A murmur rippled through the audience, and he could see several attendees nodding in agreement. "For far too long, my story and the stories of many like me have been relegated to the shadows, overlooked in favor of those who fit a narrow mold." As he spoke, Marcus pulled out his phone, displaying screenshots of conversations he had had with Thomas Blake, the head organizer of the fair, where he detailed the dismissive treatment he had received. "This was my experience at this very fair," he continued, holding the phone up for all to see. "I was not invited to this stage. Instead, I was treated as if I were just another spectator, invisible amidst the glitz and glamour that often overshadows authentic voices." Thomas, seated in the front row, shifted uncomfortably. His expression morphed from disbelief to irritation as he attempted to interject. "Marcus, I think you're exaggerating," Thomas said, attempting to regain control of the narrative. "This is a misunderstanding. Marcus's tone cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "I have the proof right here. When I approached your staff, I was met with indifference. They assumed I was just another visitor. How is that not a direct reflection of the biases that persist in this very space?" The audience gasped collectively, the tension rising palpably. Just then, a young voice rang out from the back of the room. It was Emily, the young reader who had first discovered Marcus's book. "You're wrong, Mr. Blake," she exclaimed, standing up with a fierce determination. "I read Marcus's book, and it opened my eyes to stories I had never heard before. I saw how he was treated, and it was not right. He deserves to be here just as much as anyone else." The audience erupted into applause, a wave of support crashing over Marcus. Emily's courage was infectious, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "Thank you, Emily," he responded, his voice thick with emotion. "Your words mean everything to me, and they reflect the sentiments of so many who have felt unheard." Thomas's face flushed with embarrassment, and he attempted to dismiss the growing tide of support. "This is simply a misunderstanding, and I assure you we are committed to diversity. Are you?" Marcus interjected, his eyes narrowing. "Your actions speak louder than your words. Inviting me to speak now, after my success, does not erase the fact that I was overlooked initially. True change requires more than just token gestures. It requires a concerted effort to uplift voices that have historically been silenced." The audience's applause grew louder, and Thomas's composure began to crack. "I think we should all take a moment to reflect on this," he muttered, clearly flustered. But Marcus pressed on, undeterred. "Let's not just reflect," he urged, his voice gaining strength. "Let's act. This fair can be a beacon for change, a platform where all voices are celebrated. It starts with acknowledging the biases that exist and making a commitment to rectify them." As the applause crescendoed, the tension surrounding Thomas was palpable. He glanced around, and the weight of the moment settled heavily upon him. The audience was no longer on his side. They were rallying behind Marcus, demanding accountability and change. Finally, Thomas stood up, his face a mask of defeat. I resign," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The audience erupted into cheers, the sound echoing through the auditorium like a rallying cry. Marcus felt a surge of triumph wash over him, a vindication of all the struggles he had endured. In that moment, he knew his journey was just beginning. With a leading publisher now approaching him, Marcus was not just an author. He was an advocate for change, a voice for those who had been silenced for too long. He looked out at the crowd, grateful for their support, ready to embrace a future where every story mattered and every voice was heard.